The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Amanda Blackburn, Marketing Director at Profound Logic Software, and today I'm joined by our lead product developer, David Russo, who will demonstrate the exciting new features in Profound UI 5.3. Now, before we get started, I want to cover just a few things. First, the webinar is being recorded today, and you will receive a follow-up email from us after the webinar is over with a link to that recording. Next, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You can submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar using the questions panel in the GoToWebinar interface. We'll attempt to answer as many questions as we can throughout the presentation, but if we don't get to yours in time, don't worry, we will include it in a Q&A transcript we'll send out after the webinar. And finally, when you leave the webinar today, you'll be prompted to take a short survey. Please take a moment to complete that survey for us because that will help us prepare for future webinars. Now, I'm sure many of you on this call today are already familiar with Profound UI, but just in case you aren't, here's a quick overview. So Profound UI is actually a suite of modules that help you do everything from on-the-fly modernization with Genie to designing rich interfaces with the visual designer and even deploying mobile applications with Profound Mobile. Now, today's presentation will cover the updates made to some of these modules in Profound UI 5.3, including updates to Genie and to widgets in the visual designer and also to the Atrium Secure Web Portal module. When it comes to modernizing your IBMI applications, there are several options available. Here's why we think Profound UI is the best modernization solution on the market. First, Profound UI is designed by IBMI users for IBMI users. Our developers at Profound Logic, including David, plus Scott Clement, Brian May, and Ted Holt, are all RPG development experts. Next, Profound UI uses your own RPG or PHP code to natively deploy rich, modern user interfaces. You'll never have to use .NET, Java, or rely on Windows technologies to modernize your applications. Also, all of the modules in the Profound UI suite are integrated. That means you can add a module like mobile or our Jumpstart code generator at any time, and they'll seamlessly integrate with the other modules you're already using. And finally, Profound UI completely eliminates the 5250 green screen layer. There are a lot of modernization products out there that claim to give you modern application interfaces, but they literally only scratch the surface. With Profound UI, we go beyond the green screen to convert your display files to rich display files, and we use RPG Open Access to enable modern web functionality within your application. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to David now, and he's going to start the demonstrations of the newest features in our Profound UI modernization suite. So David, take it away.
Thanks, Amanda, and thanks everyone for joining us today. As Amanda mentioned, the new features that we've added in Profound UI 5.3 fall into a number of different areas, and I've prepared some demonstrations of these new features for you. The first area that we're going to look at is an Atrium. As Amanda mentioned, Atrium is our menu portal module for Profound UI, and we've made a couple of updates here based on customer demands. The two new features that I'm going to show you today are what we call supplemental groups, and I'm also going to show you some new options that you have for setting library lists for rich display file applications within Atrium. So let's talk first about these supplemental groups. This feature basically gives you the ability to assign users into multiple groups. This is for the purpose of the menu permissions in Atrium. So I can actually go and select a user and assign that user into additional groups that will allow the user access to additional menu options as set in the menu permissions. The display preferences that you may be familiar with that are inherited from the group as well are still inherited only from the primary group. The new options that we've added for setting the library list for rich display file applications this is another feature that our customers have been asking us for. Until now, the problem has been that the same library list will be used for all rich display file application sessions that you run within Atrium. This library list comes from your system values, QSysLibel and QUserLibel, and there was no ability to pick up a different library list for a different user or a different group of users. So that's changed with the new settings that we've added. So now you can set library list options for individual users, or you can inherit these options from the user's group settings. We allow you to now specify a list of libraries, or alternatively, you can pick up the library list from a job description. So let me show you now in Atrium how these features work. Okay, what we're looking at on screen is our Atrium web portal. I'm signed in as a user that is a member of this IT group, so you'll see on the left-hand side that the user has the IT menu available. But let's go into the control panel and see how I would enable additional menu options to display for this user using the supplemental group feature. So going into the control panel, I'm going to select the IT group that contains my user, and I'm going to edit the user settings. Okay. If you've used Atrium before, most of this panel would look familiar to you. What's new is here on the right side, you'll see that we have a new interface for assigning the user to supplemental groups. So, for example, I have a sales group and a marketing group that have their own menus. And let's imagine in this case, I want my user profile, even though I'm a member of the IT group, I want to give my user profile access to the sales and marketing menus. So using this interface, I'm going to add myself to the sales group and also to the marketing group. Now, these settings will affect only the menu permissions. So my display permissions, and we'll see also a little bit later on my library list settings, are still inherited only from my primary group, which is the IT group. So let me save these settings now, and let's have a look at the menu permissions. So if I look at my marketing menu, for example, all users are disallowed and only members of the marketing group are allowed. And the same for the IT menu and the sales menu. But now that I've added my user profile to the sales and marketing groups, I should be able to see these menu options. So I'm going to go ahead and close the control panel and refresh my session. And now we see the additional marketing and sales menus appear. Even though my user profile is a member of the IT group, I can now see these because sales and marketing are now supplemental groups assigned to my user profile. Let's have a look now at the library list settings. Going back to the control panel. I'm going to edit now the IT group. So you'll see that the IT group is inheriting from the global settings. Let's imagine now I want to set a library list for the IT group. Using these new options that you see down here, I have a couple of things I can do now. The default, as I mentioned before, was to pick up the same library list for everyone that comes from the system values on IBMI. The new options that we have are to pick up the library list from a job description. So selecting this option, I can now go in and give the name of a job description in the library in which to locate it, and library lists for users in this group will be picked up from that job description. I can also specify the special value star user profile for the job description, and this will actually pull whatever job description is assigned to the user profile. And then the library list will be set from there. I can also specify the current library list for the rich display file sessions here. The second alternative that I have is to simply specify a list of libraries by selecting this option. So this brings up an interface where I can set the current library for the job, but I can also now add a list of libraries like this. So I can add them like that. I can move them up and down the list. I can change them very easily. And when set like this, all users belonging now to the IT group will get this list of libraries when they run a rich display file application session. So these options that I'm showing you give you more flexibility in how you set up your menus in Atrium and how your library lists work when you run rich display file applications. So hopefully those will make Atrium a lot more flexible for you. That's all that I have to show for Atrium. Moving on to the next section, I wanted to tell you a bit about the new widget features that we've added in version 5.3. The features that we've added are for the grid widget. We've added filter and find capabilities, and we've also added a new drag and drop file upload widget. So let's talk a little bit about these, and then I'll demonstrate them for you. So first of all, the grid filter and find features. These are new options that are activated by right-clicking in the grid column header. The filter and find work per column. So I select a column and I right-click in the header to activate these options. And the filter and find work with all of the records that are loaded into the subfile. So this works very easy just by turning on a couple of properties, as I'll show you, to get very powerful capabilities with the grid. The other new widget that we've added with 5.3 is a drag and drop file upload widget. This is a new user interface for uploading files to the server. For those of you that have used Profound UI before and are familiar with our file upload widget, you'll be pleased to know that the same back-end security is used. For those of you who have used it before, you may be aware of the exit program-based security model that we have. All of that remains the same. We're simply giving you an alternative interface where the user can select multiple files from the PC using Windows File Explorer and drag and drop them to an area on the application screen. The files upload then automatically to the server. The security is performed by our exit program, and the application is given some feedback as to what files are uploaded to take some action on those files. I prepared a little demonstration for you to show how all of these features work. So let's have a look at that. I'll first show you in the designer what these look like. So I've put together a demo application that has a list of contacts that display in a grid. So these are business contacts with a name, a company that the person belongs to, phone, and email address. The grid filter and find features, as I mentioned, are activated just by turning on a couple of properties. So if I look in the properties window, you'll see that I've turned on these two new properties, find option and filter option. I've just set those to true to activate the new features. And that's all that I have to do. For drag and drop file upload, I've put this application together so that new contacts can be added to the list just by dragging and dropping a CSV file that has all of the contact information. The file will be uploaded to the server, and then my program will insert the new contacts into the database when I drag and drop them here. So here I have the drag and drop file upload widget. This is a widget that you'll find under the input controls category in the designer, right here. So I've added one of those to my application, and then the properties are configured much like the original file upload widget that we've provided for a long time. So I can specify how many files can be uploaded, how large the files can be, where the files will go when they're uploaded, and so forth. When I drag and drop the files onto this area of the application, they'll be uploaded to the server. The screen will submit back to my RPG program, and the RPG program will get some feedback into a field that's bound to the file upload widget's upload response property. So let's see what this looks like in a running application now. I'm going to switch over to a session where I'm running this application. You'll see it here. Let's have a look first now at the grid's filter and find capabilities. So here I have a list of maybe 500 contacts that we're working with, all loaded into the subfile at one time. Let's say, for example, I wanted to find contacts whose name are Gladys. So I've right-clicked on the contact name header. I'm going to select the Find option. I'll start typing, and you'll see as I type, the grid is locating records that contain my search term in this column. It highlights them, and it will even scroll the record to the top of the list. So if I wanted to look in the company column, I can right-click here and now search here. So very easy to use. Let's have a look at the filter option. Let's say I wanted to filter on all contacts whose name are James. I can right-click on this header and select Filter. And now the list is filtered to only those contacts whose name are James. You'll see this icon appear on the column header. This indicates that the list is filtered. If I want to remove the filter, I can right-click and select this option to remove the filter and see the entire list. So all of that has been enabled just by my turning on those two properties in the designer. So it can't get much easier than that. Let's have a look now at the drag and drop file upload. So I've prepared a couple of CSV files that have some new contacts to add to the list. I have them here on my PC. I'm showing you in Windows Explorer. So I'll open up a couple of these files just to show you what they look like. I'll open them in Excel. Okay. So here's an example of the contact record in CSV format. You'll see that my contacts are for people who work at Profound Logic Software. So there's one example, and here's another one for a contact who works at Profound Logic. So I have 5 of these files. I'm going to pick them all just by shift-clicking in my Windows Explorer to grab all 5 of them. And then I'm going to drag them and drop them over the file upload widget. So you'll see I get a visual indication that I can drop the files here. I'll go ahead and do that and drop them. You'll see that they've uploaded successfully to the server, and the screen has submitted back to my RPG program, and those records have now been inserted into the database. So if I use the grid find option, I should be able to find some contacts now, 5 of them, that work at Profound Logic. And there they are. So these features are new features that we've added that are designed to make the widgets easier to use, to give you more advanced capabilities without creating a lot of extra work for you. So that's all that I have for the grid features and the drag and drop file upload widget. So let's now move along to the new Genie features that we've added. In version 5.3 for Genie, we have a couple of new features. One is an entirely new RPG open access handler for Genie. The other new features that we've added revolve around Genie's support for the Start PC command function, which allows you to, from a 5250-based application, run commands on the end user's PC. Let's talk first about the Genie handler. This is an open access handler that, unlike our rich display file handler, does not require any modification or conversion of your display file or your RPG program beyond simply adding the handler keyword to fspec in your RPG program. So this is a handler that is designed to work with original green screen 5250 based displays. The purpose of the handler is twofold. The first thing that the handler does is it provides information, high-level information about the display file to Genie for the purpose of taking guesswork out of Genie's subfile detection. So for those of you who have used Genie before, you may be aware that it has effects for your subfile screens. It will place a grid over your subfile that has a couple of nice effects. But the subfile detection has been based to this point on pattern detection. Genie looks for what appears to be a subfile on screen, and it puts a grid, but it looks nice, but you still have to page up and page down through the records. The handler takes the guesswork out of that, first of all, so that it can very precisely place the grids over any subfile, regardless of how the screen is formatted. And then another thing the handler enables are some additional effects for the subfile that were not possible before in Genie. Those effects are are scrolling through all of the records that are loaded into the subfile. So I can pick up the scroll bar and move it up and down and roll through all of the records without having to hit page up or page down to get another page of records from the server. Also, the features like the grid filter and find that I showed you before that work on the records loaded into the subfile can be activated and work with all of the records in the subfile, not just those that are on screen. Other features like that you can enable now on your subfiles in Genie are the export to Excel, sorting the records by clicking on the column headers, and even allowing the user to resize or move the columns in the subfile grid. There's also, as I mentioned, a couple of enhancements that we've made for Genie's Start PC command support. So first of all, some of you may be aware with IBM i 7.2, IBM has lengthened the command string that you can use with Start PC command. So in version 5.3, we've added support for these longer command strings. Now, even bigger is that we have added a new way of running these commands on the PC. Up to this point, we have relied on a Java applet to receive the commands from Genie and run them on the local end user computer. That is becoming a problem because, as some of you may be aware, some browser vendors are dropping support for the Java plugin. For example, Microsoft's new Edge browser and current versions of Google's Chrome browser don't support the Java plugin. So this means that you cannot run Start PC command in a Genie session when you're using one of those browsers. Until now, we've come out with a new program that we call the PC Command Listener that provides a Java-free alternative for doing this. The PC Command Listener is a PC-side program. This is a separate download and installation. It's a program that your end user will install on the computer. It runs continuously in the system tray, and it listens for commands coming from your Genie session via Start PC command. And it also, it's worth pointing out, listens for commands coming from our Run PC command API as well. So it will receive those from Genie or from the Run PC command API and run the commands on the computer. The advantage of doing this, first and foremost, is that there is no Java. So this means that it will work in any current web browser, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, and our PC Command Listener runs on any current version of Windows, meaning Windows Vista 7, 8, and 10. So let's have a look at these new features. I'll switch over to a Genie session. First of all, I'll show you on the green screen a program that I'm going to run using the Genie handler. So I have a green screen program here that will display a listing of products. And to use the Genie handler, I've made one simple modification to this program. I've gone into the RPG code, and I've added this handler keyword and recompiled the code. That is the only modification that had to be done to this program to enable these additional effects in Genie. But before I go to Genie, I'm going to point out that I can still call this program from a normal 5250 emulation session. So here I'm running a session in IBM's IBM i Access Client Solutions emulator. And I can actually call this program right up, even though it has the Genie handler added to it right here on a green screen, and the application runs as normal. So first of all, the Genie handler will determine if you're running in a normal 5250 emulator or if you're running in Genie. In a normal 5250 emulator, it makes sure that the program behaves as it did before. So here I have a good old-fashioned green screen, just like before. Now, if I run this in Genie, we'll see the additional effects that I was referring to. So here in Genie, I'm going to call up the same program. And we'll see now that Genie displays this program with a nice subfile. And what's very new and interesting is that I can actually scroll through all of the records here in Genie. This was not possible before. Without the Genie handler, the grid would display, but I would have to page up and page down through the records. I could not scroll through them like this. All of the nice grid features that work on the records loaded into the subfile can be activated using the Genie designer. For example, I activated the grid filter and find just by turning on those two properties that I showed you in the designer. So I can now use those here on the grid data in Genie. So here we're looking at the find option. The filter option works as well. I can export all of the records to Excel. So you can see here in my Excel sheet, I've got about 750 records. I can sort the records by clicking on the column headers. And the user can even resize and move the grid columns around. So all of these features that I'm showing to you are new for Genie just by my adding the handler keyword in my RPG program and recompiling it. And again, the same program as we saw runs as before on the green screen. So if you still need to support a normal green screen 5250 emulation, it's not a problem at all. Let's look now at the new PC command listener. So I'm going to run a start PC command from my Genie session at a command line. But let me first show you how the user installs and works with the PC command listener. As I mentioned, this is a separate download and installation. So that's actually a PC side program that the user has to install, but it's very easy. I actually have an installer here. On my desktop. So I'm going to run this, and you'll see that it installs in just a second. It's very easy to use. So I've installed it already, and I'll run it. And the program, as you may notice down here, runs in the system tray. So whenever the user installs it, the PC command listener sets itself up to run automatically on Windows startup. And when it runs down here in the system tray. It works by listening for the commands from a Genie session on a TCP IP port. It listens on port 80 by default. If a different port is being used or if the same port is being used on the PC and I need to use an alternate, the PC command listener does have an option where I can specify the port that's being used. So I can use any port I want as long as the Genie server side piece knows which port to communicate with to the end user computers. So to configure this on the server, all that I have to do is set a couple of quick options in the Genie administrator. So moving over to the Genie administrator, I can activate use of the PC command listener just by setting this option to true either at the global or skin level. So I need to set this option on because the default for backwards compatibility is still to use the Java applet that we've been talking about. So just by turning this to true, it tells Genie to use the PC command listener. Genie will try to reach out to the PC command listener on port 80 by default. If I need to use an alternate port, I can configure that using this option here. The end user PC listener installations, though, need to be configured to listen on the same port. So the value from the Genie administrator just has to match what the end users are using on their side. So from there, it's all seamless. If I wanted to run a command to, for example, open a file on my computer, I have a file here that I'll open. My computer has the PC command listener running and ready. So I'll start off by running the start PCO command, which is necessary before I can run start PC command. Now, as I mentioned before, IBM has lengthened the command string that you can use with start PC command. That support is seamless in Genie. You can run a command through it as long as IBM will accept on the start PC command. You can also use Windows environment variables when you run your commands. So if I wanted to launch my file from that folder on my desktop, I can do something like this. So you'll see that the command has been run instantly on my PC and the file is opened. So it's very fast and seamless, and the most important thing is that no Java is required. So I can use this now in Edge, I can use it in Chrome, and I don't even have to have Java installed on the computer at all. So that wraps up the demonstration portion today. If you're already using Profound UI, we'd like to invite you to try upgrading to 5.3 to try these features and let us know what you think about them. If you're a new user, we encourage you to try a free 30-day evaluation that's available at profoundlogic.com. With that, I will turn it back over to Amanda for wrap-up.
All right, there we go. Thanks, David. That was a great presentation. Lots of good information about the new features, and it looks like we're already starting to get some questions coming through. So I wanted to invite everybody to take some time. If you have a question for David about the new features, just please fill that out using the questions section on your GoToWebinar interface. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to tell you guys about an exciting new event we have running at Profound Logic. Between now and March 31st, you will have the opportunity to win a full conference pass to Spring Common in New Orleans. All you have to do is go to the contest website. We put the link there on this slide. And you can submit a screenshot of your modernized applications and share with us how modernizing your applications with Profound UI has improved your business. We hear lots of stories all the time from our customers about how, it's easier to train their workers, it's easier to maintain their applications. So this is what we're looking for, and we're hoping you can share that information with us. The screenshots and your stories will be reviewed by our team, and that includes IBM champions Scott Clement and Brian May. And we'll announce the winners at the beginning of April, and that includes 2 runner-up winners who will receive $100 each. So go to info.profoundlogic.com/application-transformation for your chance to win. And so now I'm going to hand it back over to David for the Q&A. Even while he's going through and going through these questions and giving answers, you still have time. And like I said, if we don't get to your question today, we'll include it in a Q&A transcript for when we email you after the webinar. Okay? And David, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. And yeah, there's quite a few questions coming through. So let's go through and see what we can answer here. Here's a good question. Can I add a supplemental group that has deny permissions on the menu option and cause that menu option to not display for that user? The answer to that is yes, that's exactly how it will work. So you can think of the supplemental groups as simply an additional group that you're adding the user to for the purpose of the menu permissions. So in my example, during the demonstration, I used a supplemental group to allow a user to an option that he would have been disallowed from by default. But the reverse is also true. You can also use the supplemental groups to deny a user from an option they would normally be permitted to. Another question, it says, I like the upload widget. Can you provide sample code of how to handle that? Yes, we certainly can. We do have, I'd recommend having a look at the file upload widget documentation. We'll explain exactly how to use the widget. And if you need an example, we can also provide the example code from the webinar to anyone who's interested. Okay. Another question, it says, on the PC command, if it can't find the listener, does it auto fail over to the Java applet? The answer is no. The way that it works is that it will try to use the applet by default, but if you set the configuration option that I showed in the Genie admin, it will try to use the listener. So it tries to use one or the other, depending on your configuration. It does not fail over. Okay. Another question. It says, the slide says, referring to the grid filter and find features, the slide says all records loaded into the subfile. Does that mean that you need to load all records into the subfile for the filter and sort to work? That is right. These are client-side features. So that means that they're done automatically by the grid widget just by my turning on those properties. So that does mean that these features work with the records that you have already loaded into the subfile. That being said, we also provide hooks that allow you to use some of these features with your own server-side code. For example, with grid sorting, we provide a hook that allows you to click on the column header and submit back to your RPG program to change the sort by loading a different set of records or by modifying an SQL statement to load the records sorted in a different way. Another question, can you use multiple column filters at the same time? And the answer is yes, you can. That's not a problem at all. I'm seeing another question here. Can you save the client-side grid, sort, or filter so that it displays that way when the RPG program puts the screen out again? The answer to that is yes. The grid has a property that's called persist state that can be turned on that causes the user's state of the grid to be saved in the browser's local storage. The next time the user comes back to view the same grid, it will be put back into the same configuration they left it in, meaning the sort, the size of the columns, the ordering of the columns, and all of that will be restored as they left it. Another question, can I search or filter on any string in the column? All of the examples showed only text that was at the beginning of the text. So when I was using those options, my examples were sorting on the, or finding on the beginning text, but you may have noticed as I was typing, it does a contains match. So it will find the text wherever it occurs in the grid data, not just at the beginning. So let's see what else that we've got. Okay. Here's a good question. Can you use the new Genie handler program with existing Genie screens? The answer to that is yes. The handler is added in the RPG code. This will influence Genie's subfile detection. So that will cause Genie to place the subfile grid over the subfile, and then any other options that you want to turn on are done by going into the designer and turning them on. And it should play well with existing designer screen customizations as well.
Hey, David, I was just going to say we probably have time for just a couple more questions.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think we have one more that I haven't answered. This is an interesting question. It says, is there a PC command listener for Macs? At this time, we do not have a PC command listener for Macs. It is designed for Windows PCs. However, the Java applet method that we've provided for some time should work just fine on a Mac. However, you would have to use a supported browser. For example, Chrome on a Mac does not have support for Java plugin. However, Firefox on Mac does support Java plugin. So as long as your browser on the Mac runs a Java plugin, you can use the applet.
All right. Did you want to take on any more, David, or we can answer the rest of these later in our transcript that we'll send out to everybody?
I think that sounds good. I think I've got all of them that I can see so far.
Okay, great. All right, so with that being said, I just wanted to thank everybody again for attending the webinar. We're letting out a little bit early today, but there was a lot of good information in this. So again, just wanted to let you know that we are recording it. We will share the link to that recording in an email that'll come out after the webinar. But in the meanwhile, like David said, you can download a free 30-day trial of Profound UI on our website. And then also just a reminder to please complete the survey after the webinar to let us know how everything went. And then don't miss your chance to enter the application transformation contest at the link below, and we'll include more information about that in an email as well. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.